canine German Shepherd refuses to leave his mom's side until they're free from Quicksand. Then, the worst happens. The footage shocked everyone. A canine German Shepherd, once trained for the most dangerous missions, was found half buried in quicksand, his body trembling, his eyes locked on something just beside him. It wasn't fear that kept him there. It was loyalty. His mother, an older German Shepherd, lay sinking fast, and he refused to abandon her. Rescue crews begged him to move, but he stayed rooted to the spot, even as the sand crept higher. What happened next was something no one could have predicted. This story isn't just about survival. It's about unbreakable bonds, impossible choices, and a heartbreaking twist that will stay with you long after the video ends. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. That's how we keep bringing you true, inspiring stories like this. Ones that remind us what real love and courage look like. The sun had barely risen over the vast stretch of dry land when the first call came into the county rescue center. A local hiker had spotted two large dogs stuck deep in a remote desert basin, one of them struggling, the other almost completely still. The dispatcher assumed it was a mistake. Who would bring dogs this deep into a place known for quicksand and silent sinkholes? But when the park rangers arrived, they froze in place. Half sunken into a wide patch of shifting sand was an elderly German Shepherd, her grayed fur caked with mud, her eyes closed, her body limp. Beside her, clinging desperately to her, was a massive canine German Shepherd, his chest rising and falling rapidly, legs trembling from exhaustion. His name, they would later learn, was Axel. But that morning, all they saw was a dog refusing to leave the side of another. They tried to approach. Axel growled, a low, broken sound, not out of aggression, but fear. He barked once, looking at them, then turning immediately back to nudge the older dog's head, as if begging her to wake up. She didn't move. She's still alive, one ranger whispered. But barely. Axel barked again, louder this time. His paws, submerged halfway into the unstable sand, dug against the pull of the earth. His body was shaking, every inch of him screaming for help, but he refused to climb out. He could have. There was still time for him, but he wouldn't move without her. They brought ropes, boards, even a winch, but the ground was unpredictable, and the quicksand wouldn't wait. Time was running out. Back at the station, Animal Control traced Axel's microchip. The record stunned everyone. Axel had been a military canine, honorably retired just 6 months ago after serving 2 tours in Afghanistan. His handler had died during their final mission. The army had rehomed him, but something had gone wrong. There was no record of him being adopted with another dog. So who was she? As the rescuers worked, Axel whimpered low, trying to keep his mother awake. The sand was now up to her neck. His front paws pressed against her shoulder. It wasn't training that kept him there. It was something primal, something no command could ever break. Love. Rescue team leader Rachel Monroe knelt at the edge of the basin. We need to tranquilize him, one medic whispered. He won't let us near her. Rachel shook her head. No, he's protecting her. If we sedate him and the ground shifts, we'll lose them both. She looked Axel in the eye. Buddy, let us help. His ears twitched. For a moment, it looked like he might relent. But he stayed, refused to climb out. Rachel took a deep breath and stepped forward, onto the edge of the sand. The ground shifted. Everyone held their breath. Axel barked once, sharp, warning, but then did something no one expected. He stepped forward, just an inch, just enough to put his front paws over his mother's neck like shielding her. He was willing to sink with her if it meant keeping her safe. Rachel's voice cracked. We don't have much time. They had to make a decision, fast. Wait any longer, and they'd lose both dogs. As the team prepared for one last rescue attempt, Rachel looked back at Axel. "You're the bravest dog I've ever seen," she whispered, "but please, let us try." What happened next would change everything and leave the team shaken in ways they'd never forget. The desert air grew hotter by the minute. The team's equipment groaned under pressure as they scrambled to secure pulleys and anchor lines, forming a fragile rescue triangle around the quicksand pit. But it wasn't the sand alone that made the job delicate. It was Axel. Every time someone stepped too close to the sunken German Shepherd, Axel let out a guttural growl. Not hostile, just desperate. He stood like a sentinel, his muscular body coated in thick, wet sand, his eyes darting between the humans and the barely breathing figure beneath him. "Her vitals are dropping," one of the vets warned over the radio. "We have minutes." Rachel Monroe crouched low at the edge, her voice barely above a whisper. "Axel, listen to me. You know what danger is. You've seen it. This is it. She's going under." She held out a water bottle. Axel's ears flicked. He was thirsty. Rachel could see it in the way his tongue twitched, in the tight draw of his ribs. But he didn't move. "He's in survival mode," the vet said. "He won't leave until she's out, or gone." Rachel looked around. "We can't sedate. We can't force him. But maybe—" She knelt again, pulling something from her vest, a clicker and a strip of worn fabric. It wasn't much, but it carried a scent, leather and dust, and something more subtle. She held it out across the sand. "Axel," she said gently, clicking once. "Smell this." The dog stiffened. Slowly he turned his head. Rachel clicked again, softer. "It's from your unit, from your old handler's vest. We're not strangers." Axel's chest rose and fell. Each breath labored. He didn't step forward, but he didn't growl either. "We're not here to take her. We're here to save her," she added. "But we need you." The words hung in the air. The team waited. Then, finally, Axel stepped back. Just 2 steps, enough for Rachel to move in. "Go!" she yelled. The rescue team leapt into action. 2 crew members secured a board under the elder dog's body, while others began pulling her out with nylon straps, inch by inch. The sand fought back, trying to reclaim her. But together, humans and Axel, they won. When she was finally pulled free, her body limp and barely conscious, Axel collapsed beside her. He didn't wag, didn't bark. He just pressed his nose to her muzzle and whimpered. Rachel crouched next to him. "We got her, boy, we got her." But just as hope began to bloom in their chests, one of the medics shouted, "We've got a problem. Her pulse is crashing." The team worked frantically. Oxygen mask, chest compressions, IV line. Axel stood again, circling her, barking as if he could command her back to life. Minutes passed. Then one of the vets looked up. "She's back." A collective exhale rippled through the group. But just as they turned to prepare transport, a sharp crack echoed across the basin. The ground beneath Axel began to tremble again. "No, no, no," Rachel shouted. Axel, too tired to run, didn't react. He just looked at his mother, now safely on the stretcher. The ground beneath his feet gave way. One of his back legs slipped into the sand. "Hold him!" someone screamed. 2 rangers dove forward, gripping his harness just in time. His legs kicked furiously, his body sinking deeper, as if the pit was refusing to let go. "Pull!" They yanked with all their strength. Axel cried out, once. Then silence. They got him out, but something was wrong. Rachel knelt at his side. "Axel, come on." His eyes blinked once. His leg was twisted, broken, maybe worse. But he was alive, barely. And now, both he and his mother would have to fight, not just for survival, but for a future no one had planned for. Axel lay motionless in the back of the emergency transport truck, wedged between oxygen tanks and medical kits. His fur, still damp from the quicksand, clung to his body like armor that had taken too many hits. The gash across his hind leg oozed slowly, and his breathing was shallow. His ears twitched at every bump in the road, but his eyes, they never left the stretcher across from him. His mother lay wrapped in a thermal blanket, an IV dripping into her fragile vein. Her chest rose and fell with the faintest rhythm, and every now and then, her paw twitched. She was alive, but barely, and Axel knew it. At the county animal hospital, the team moved quickly. 2 stretchers, 2 teams. Rachel Monroe followed closely, refusing to leave Axel's side. Her hands were still shaking from the rescue. She had seen a lot in her years: bears, floods, dogs abandoned in the worst conditions, but never anything like this. Never a dog that would rather drown than let go. "Get the K9 unit on standby," she told the vet. "We might need to coordinate long-term care." In the operating room, the vet confirmed what they feared. Axel's leg was fractured in 3 places. The damage wasn't fatal, but recovery would be long, painful, and uncertain. And his mother? She was suffering from exhaustion, severe dehydration, and internal bleeding. "They both need more than we can give," the lead vet said, "especially if they're strays." "They're not strays," Rachel snapped. "He's a decorated KT. He's earned more than some medal, he's earned a chance." Meanwhile, Axel remained sedated. But in the quiet dark of recovery, something stirred in him. A memory. The heat of combat. A handler's voice calling, "Stay with me, Axel! Stay with me!" The weight of a human body pinned beneath debris. Axel had stayed then too. He dug, barked, refused to leave until help came. Now, it was her turn. When he woke, bandaged and sore, he lifted his head slowly, looking for her. A nurse noticed and gently wheeled her bed closer. The moment Axel saw her, still unconscious but breathing, he whined softly, then pressed his nose against her paw. He didn't move after that. Not for water, not for food, not even for pain meds. Rachel stood watching through the glass, arms crossed, jaw tight. "He's not going to eat," the vet said, "until he knows she's safe." Days passed. Axel's condition stabilized, but his spirit remained on edge. He would snarl at any staff who tried to move him from her side. The hospital had no choice but to rearrange the ICU to keep them together. Reporters started calling. The footage of the rescue had gone viral. Comments flooded in, people crying, begging to adopt them, offering donations. But Rachel knew this wasn't just another story. This was personal. She sat beside Axel one night, her fingers stroking the space between his ears. "You're not giving up, huh?" His eyes flicked toward her, as if to say, "Would you?" Then something happened. His mother stirred. It was slight, just the movement of her head toward him. Her eyes fluttered open. Axel whimpered, nudging closer. Her eyes met his. And in that fragile, flickering moment, something passed between them. Not words, not commands, just understanding. She was alive, and she knew that he had stayed. The nurses cried. Rachel turned away, biting her lip. No one in the room said a word. They didn't need to. They had just witnessed something rare. Not survival, devotion. But the hardest choice was still to come, because the fracture in Axel's leg might never heal properly, and someone, somewhere, would soon suggest the unthinkable. The news came quietly. Rachel had just walked into the vet wing with coffee in one hand and Axel's medical file in the other when Dr. Hansen, the orthopedic specialist, stepped out of the operating suite. He didn't speak right away. He just looked at her with that face. Flat, serious, final. Rachel knew before he even opened his mouth. "He's not going to walk the same," Dr. Hansen said. Even if we try an experimental implant, the damage is too severe. He'll always have a limp. He'll never be operational again. Rachel's jaw clenched. He's not a machine. He's not meant to go back to war. Dr. Hansen nodded slowly. But it's not about the battlefield. It's about quality of life. Pain. Control? You know what they'd usually recommend. Rachel snapped. Don't you dare say it. He sighed. If he weren't a canine hero, if there weren't cameras watching, someone would have already called for euthanasia. Rachel slammed the file down on the counter. Then thank God there are cameras watching. Back in the room, Axel lay curled around his mother, who had begun eating soft food again. She was older than they thought, over 12. Her hips were failing, her heart murmur growing louder with each day. But she was alert now, present, and still here. Rachel entered slowly and knelt by the edge of Axel's bed. They want to make a decision for you, she whispered. They think it's too much, too painful, too complicated. Axel didn't move, but his ears twitched. He was listening. Rachel continued. But I saw what you did out there. I saw what love made you do. That's not weakness. That's the kind of strength people write books about. She pulled a form from her pocket, the transfer application to take over Axel's care permanently. I'm not going to let them write your ending, she said. You stayed. Now it's my turn. The next day, the team held a private meeting. Hospital board members, animal control, legal advisors. Rachel stood before them with a slideshow of Axel's military record, his rescue footage, and then a simple photo. Axel lying next to his mother, his head resting gently on her neck, eyes open, watching the world. This dog doesn't need to run marathons, she said. He just needs a home. He's not broken. He's brave. The room fell silent. Finally, one of the board members asked, What about the older dog? Rachel smiled. She's coming too. It wasn't easy, paperwork, politics, protocol, but the internet helped. Thousands of messages, donations, letters from veterans, even a handwritten note from a Gold Star family. The public had spoken. And so, Axel and his mother, now officially named Greta, were discharged into Rachel's custody. The first steps were hard. Axel limped, dragging his back leg carefully, but refused help. He insisted on following Greta wherever she went. When she lay in the sun, he lay beside her. When she was cold, he nudged her blanket closer with his snout. They healed together, slow, uncertain, but alive. One morning, weeks later, Rachel walked outside to find them both in the grass. Greta dozing peacefully, Axel watching the trees sway in the wind, his ears alert, his bad leg tucked under him. He looked up at her. No bark, no whimper, just calm. Rachel sat beside him, rubbing the scar that ran across his hip. They thought you were done, she whispered. But I think this is just the beginning. And for the first time since the sand, Axel leaned against her and sighed. He was home, but just as the peace settled in, Rachel's phone buzzed. She checked the screen. Her eyes narrowed. A message from a private number. We know who Greta is, and we're coming. The message haunted Rachel long after she put the phone down. We know who Greta is, and we're coming. No signature, no callback number, just a warning. Or was it a threat? She sat at the edge of her couch, Axel lying at her feet, sensing something was wrong. His ears perked every time she shifted, and when she got up to pace, he followed, his limp more noticeable with every step, but his devotion never fading. Rachel replayed the events in her mind, everything since the rescue. No microchip had been found in Greta. No registered owner. The vet had confirmed she wasn't tagged, wasn't claimed, and showed no signs of recent care. How could someone suddenly show up now claiming to know who she was? She typed back a message, but it bounced. Untraceable. The next morning, a car pulled up outside her property. Rachel stepped onto the porch, hand instinctively near her waist. She didn't own a gun, but she was a former rescue responder. Her instincts were sharp. A man stepped out, late 50s, dark eyes, clean boots that didn't match the dust on the road. A woman was with him, younger, silent, her eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. "Can I help you?" Rachel asked, voice firm. The man smiled, too easily. "You've got 2 German shepherds, right? One young, one old." Rachel didn't answer. He nodded toward the house. "We're here for the female." Axel had appeared at the door behind her, stiff-legged but tall, his posture fierce. He didn't bark. He didn't need to. "I don't think so," Rachel said flatly. The woman stepped forward. "Her name's not Greta. It's Kira. She was part of a private security breeding program. She went missing 6 years ago during a facility fire." Rachel's blood went cold. "And?" "She was never supposed to survive," the woman continued. "We thought she had died, but she was valuable, and now we want her back." "You abandoned her?" Rachel snapped. "We lost track of her," the man replied. "It wasn't intentional." Rachel folded her arms. "She nearly died in Quicksand." "And yet she didn't," the man said, "because of the K9 you now have. We could compensate you, of course, but she belongs to us." Rachel laughed bitterly. "You don't own her. Not anymore." The man's expression changed. The charm disappeared. "You've made this complicated," he said. "We'll be back with papers." Rachel didn't wait. That afternoon, she contacted every contact she had in animal law, rescue networks, and even a retired military handler she trusted. Together, they began digging into Greta, Kira's, background. And what they found was worse than Rachel imagined. Kira had been part of a covert breeding and training program that was shut down years ago after whistleblowers exposed illegal overbreeding, abuse, and dumping of unfit animals. The facility burned down weeks after the investigation started. Many dogs perished. Some vanished. Records were destroyed. But Kira's name appeared, once, in an archived lawsuit. She'd been labeled breeder discard, too old, too many litters, injured. Rachel stared at the screen, her hands trembling. "You were left to die," she whispered. Axel walked to her side, sat beside her chair, and rested his chin on her knee. She looked at him and knew. Whatever had happened to Kira, whatever horrors she'd lived through, Axel had been the one to keep her going. He hadn't just saved her in the quicksand. He'd been saving her for years. That night, Rachel filed for legal emergency guardianship for both dogs. If they were coming back, she would be ready. As the wind howled outside and the house settled into uneasy silence, Axel curled around Greta once more. But his ears stayed alert. He knew the danger wasn't over. The next morning arrived with a strange calm, the kind that always comes before something breaks. The birds chirped. The sky was clear, but Rachel could feel it. Something was coming. And Axel? He felt it too. He refused to eat. Pacing the yard, his bad leg dragging behind him, he sniffed the wind and let out short, low grumbles every few minutes. Greta stayed in the sun near the porch, her old bones tucked under a blanket, her eyes never leaving her son. Rachel had barely slept. The legal guardianship filing was in progress, but the rescue center's lawyer warned her. If they show up with forged records or a court order from another state, things could get ugly fast. She loaded her rifle, just in case. Not to use it, but to have it visible. Presence was power. By noon, the same black SUV pulled into the driveway. Rachel stepped forward before they even turned off the engine. "You need to leave." The man stepped out alone this time. He had a briefcase in one hand, sunglasses on despite the cloud cover. "We have documents now," he said. "She belongs to us." Rachel didn't flinch. "You abandoned her. You let her breed until she collapsed, then dumped her. That's not ownership. That's cruelty." He opened the briefcase, pulling out papers. "This says otherwise." Behind her, Greta let out a soft growl. Axel limped down the steps beside Rachel, staring at the man, tail stiff, head low, eyes locked on the intruder. "Call him off," the man muttered, stepping back. "I don't call him," Rachel replied. "He decides who deserves to be here." Axel's growl deepened. The man shifted. "Look, I don't want trouble, but this dog's valuable. She's tagged in old records as a genetically unique female. Do you know how rare that is?" Rachel's face went cold. "She's not a number. She's not a project. She's a mother. And he's her son. They survived because they had each other. You think I'm giving that up?" Suddenly, the man's tone changed. The mask dropped. "You're going to regret this," he hissed. Axel lunged forward, barking with force, his injured leg giving out but still pushing. The man backed away, nearly stumbling over the gravel. Rachel stepped between them. "Get off my property. Next time, I will call the cops." The man returned to his car, slamming the door hard. Tires spun on the dirt as he sped away. Silence returned, but it wasn't peace. Not yet. That night, Rachel checked every door twice. She reinforced the kennel gates, even though Axel and Greta slept inside now. She didn't want to risk anything. But around midnight, Axel growled from the foot of her bed. Deep, serious. Rachel jolted upright. He ran, limping heavily to the back door. Outside, two figures moved by the fence line. She grabbed her phone and called the sheriff. "Possible break-in," she whispered. "Two men, back property line." Axel barked again, loud this time, and she saw them run. Flashlights bounced as the intruders scrambled back to their car. Rachel watched from the window as the taillights vanished into the distance. The next day, the sheriff arrived. Axel walked slowly, but stood tall as the officer crouched down to scratch his ear. "He's not just loyal," the sheriff said. "He's a protector." Later that evening, Rachel received a call from her lawyer. "The judge approved emergency guardianship," he said. "It's official. They're yours. No one can take them now." Rachel dropped into a chair, relief washing over her like a wave. She looked at Axel, who rested beside Greta in the golden light of sunset. "You did it," she whispered. "You kept her safe. You kept us safe." Greta shifted in her sleep, one paw gently touching Axel's chest. Axel closed his eyes, for the first time in a long time. They were safe. But none of them knew that tomorrow, the worst threat would come from inside, and it would test everything they'd fought to protect.
The morning began like any other. The sky was soft with clouds. A light breeze danced through the trees. Greta slept soundly in her usual spot on the porch, her old body curled into a tight ball, her breath slow but steady. Axel, now gaining strength day by day, paced gently around her, his limp still visible, but not as heavy. His body had taken a beating, but his spirit never cracked. Rachel made breakfast with one eye on the window, still uneasy after the recent threats. But the house had settled again. The papers were signed. The law was on their side. Everything, finally, felt still. Until Greta didn't wake up. Rachel noticed it first. Her chest wasn't rising. Axel was already beside her, his nose tucked against her muzzle, his eyes wide, not in fear, but in disbelief. "Greta," Rachel whispered, stepping closer. She knelt down and placed her hand against the dog's chest. No heartbeat. Rachel's own heart dropped. "No, no." She turned to Axel. "I'm sorry, boy." But Axel didn't move. He stayed by her side, lying next to her motionless body, pressing his forehead to her shoulder as if trying to wake her with memory. Rachel let the tears fall, soft and silent. She knew it was coming. Greta was old, her body too fragile after everything, but it didn't make it easier. She sat beside Axel, stroking his back gently. "She went peacefully," Rachel whispered. "She knew she was safe. She had you." Axel didn't respond. He didn't bark or whine. He just stayed. An hour passed, then 2. Rachel tried coaxing him inside, offering food, but he wouldn't leave her. Not yet. News of Greta's passing spread quickly. The community, which had followed the story since the rescue, flooded Rachel's inbox with messages of support. Someone sent flowers. A local veterans group sent a plaque, engraved, "Greta, loyal mother, survivor, hero." Rachel buried Greta at the edge of the property, beneath the oak tree that had given her shade during her last days. She built a simple wooden marker with her name and placed Axel's favorite blanket beneath it. That night, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Axel still refused to sleep indoors. He lay by the grave, silent, his eyes reflecting the sky. Rachel watched from the porch. She wanted to tell him it was okay to move on, but she knew better. Axel needed to grieve. He needed to stay, one last time. A week passed. Then something changed. One morning, Rachel found Axel not beside the grave, but on the porch, waiting. He looked up at her, tired but calm. And when she opened the door, he stepped inside. He had said goodbye. From that day on, Axel stayed close. He became Rachel's shadow, following her to the barn, the mailbox, the kitchen. His limp never fully healed, but his eyes softened. He played fetch again. He barked at the mailman. He slept by Rachel's bed. He didn't forget Greta. He just carried her with him. One evening, Rachel sat beside him, scratching under his collar. "You stayed by her side," she said softly. "Even in the worst moments, you never gave up. That's love, Axel. That's loyalty." Axel wagged his tail once, slow and strong. "You saved her. You saved all of us." As twilight settled over the trees and fireflies lit the tall grass, Axel walked out to the oak tree. He sat beside Greta's grave, not in sorrow, but in peace. And in that moment, Rachel realized something profound. The strongest hearts don't beat in spite of pain. They beat because of it. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Share it with someone who believes in loyalty, courage, and the healing power of love. Help us continue bringing stories like Axel and Greta's to life, because some heroes walk on 4 legs,